Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our Women Breaking Barriers panel. I am so excited that you have come to join us. My name is Rose Terry, and I will be your moderator for today's panel. This panel specifically was inspired by the female founders in a program that the Innovation Cluster runs called the Women Breaking Barriers Accelerator Program. And for those of you that don't know what that program is, it is a program for female founders in science, technology, engineering, math, and social innovation. And it's a cohort program where they have the opportunity at the end of the 6-month program to pitch for investment to angel investors, which was very exciting. And so we thought that something that would be really cool to do with this panel would be to have our female founders that are participating in the program to actually design and develop the questions that would be asked to our panel today. So we're very, very excited that it's actually questions from founders to founders. And we have a lot of great questions for you today. And we have 3 excellent panel members. One of ours, our panelist, was not able to make it today, Shelby, as is typical of entrepreneurship. She had something that she had to take care of today and could not make it. So we will miss her, but we're so excited that we still have 3 excellent panel members that will be answering the questions for you today. And so if you are tuning in for this program and you've never used Zoom before, one thing I just want to let you know of is that we have a chat box that you're more than welcome to use throughout the panel. And then we also have a Q&A box down at the bottom of Zoom where you can actually enter in all of your questions. And what I will do at the end of the panel, as long as we have time, is we will answer some of your questions as well. Okay, so without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Janine Taylor, Sophie Andrea.
Hi, everyone.
And Rhonda Barnett.
Hi.
They are 3 panelists today, 3 amazing, strong female founders, and they are going to be answering our questions today. And what we're going to do for the beginning of the panel today is I'm going to ask Janine, Sophie, and Rhonda to all give you a little bit of an introduction about themselves and their backgrounds so that you know a little bit more about them before we get started. Let's start with Janine.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm first. Okay. My sound okay? Yes, we're good?
Yes,
We're
perfect.
good. Okay, great. So I'm the founder, publisher, and CEO of courthenow.com. My background, long and winding path. Originally, my education was in marketing way back. So I worked in marketing and promotion, did some corporate work. I worked in retail marketing for Cadillac Fairview and shopping center management for a while. And then I landed on the internet in 1996 and combined some of the background skills that I had with the new technology, did website development for 16 years, and then flipped that over into internet publishing. That's the short version.
Very cool. Thanks, Janine. Next up, let's have Sophie.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Sophie Andrea, and back years ago, I found this for you guys. This was my class composite for my undergrad in computer science, and I wanted to count how many humans were males and females in there. So it was just 8% females back then, 8%, 8 out of 100. And so that was interesting. And my undergrad was computers. And I was hired right away at Bell Canada. And it was kind of like this rock star team, almost reminds me of the Innovation Cluster people in my eyes, because we were, analog was just happening to large, analog was the only network out there. And I was hired as a customer systems engineer that would help businesses understand how to leverage the power of digital networks. So I would look at all of the information flow of communication between companies, whether it was their staff in offices, between offices, in the field, and their clients. And I just absolutely loved it. So that's kind of like become who I am. I can see the flow of information. I visualize it because I used to have to go and explain it, but then I can also share with you how it's going to help you make more money. So it's interesting because now my husband and I run our own marketing agency, and we help businesses understand how to touch point their clients through digital marketing by understanding how they can make more money leveraging the power of frickin' social media. I mean, it's just beautiful. But like Janine said, there is a short and a long version. While I was at Bell Canada, kind of felt I needed a set of balls, sorry. So I went back to school and got my master's of engineering in information systems because I felt we're going to get into imposter syndrome later, but I felt that would help me be stronger at the table. So I had clients and I always wanted this one job that was called National Account Manager, spelled backwards. It was man, and there were no females in it. Anyways, that's another long story, but that was my foundation. Since then, I was a startup on Bay Street. We went public, did a lot of finance, raising money for that company, lost all my money during the dot bust, didn't know what I was going to do. I had a Jaguar and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, that's a whole reinvent conversation for another time. And but I absolutely love what I'm doing now, and I love working with family run companies. Mainly I kind of pick and choose who I work with, and we're a family run company, and we work with a lot of family run companies for helping them with digital marketing. So that's pretty much who we are.
I just need to say this before I forget. Sophie, they're not balls, they're ovaries. Let's make that the theme for the day.
I already have
all
mine.
ovaries. Yes.
Well, I don't have
We're
my
good.
ovaries actually. Yeah.
Thanks. That was awesome, Sophie. Next up, we have Rhonda, last but certainly not least.
Thanks, Rose. So my name's Rhonda Barnett. I'm a lifelong Peterborough resident. I'm the president and COO of Abbott Manufacturing in Peterborough. So I'm a co-founder with my husband, Don. We started a company actually called Steelworks Design about 19 years ago. We rebranded to Abbott Manufacturing a couple of years ago, and we're out on Fisher Drive in a brand new facility. We're a global provider of automation to really big companies around the world, and we do some really exciting things, but that's kind of not my whole story. I'm a STEM graduate. I graduated from Trent University in mathematics and computer science, got my first job locally at a company that was called Spectrum Engineering. I was one of very few technical females in the group. I started in the accounting office, and some of the male engineers, the partners, saw potential in me and gave me some great opportunities to explore the technical side of the business. Got to do that. In my career, I actually got to take some time off and have a couple of kids. I didn't have to give that up, and then came back and started my own business with my husband. We've been doing it, as I said, for about 19 years. I've led the biggest trade association in Canada, the largest, oldest trade association, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. I did that as the first female. That's probably the thing I'm most famous for, locally and nationally. So I do a lot of work nationally and internationally on women in manufacturing, so that I can move the dial on the participation of women in the sector, including at the World Manufacturing Forum that I've presented there. So lots of stories to tell, lots of glass ceilings that I've had the opportunity to challenge and break. And I look forward to, sharing some of my insights to help you do the same.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And not to mention, if you want to learn more, we've populated in the chat the link that outlines all of their bios, and they have many more awards, and these women are incredible. So I highly recommend, if you haven't taken a look at their bios, to do so. So I want to dive right into the questions now. So my first question for you is, what does it mean to be a female founder to you? So why don't we start with Rhonda this time?
Sure. I guess for me, I'm lucky. I was raised in a blue collar family, and my father was a butcher, and I worked for him. My sister and I worked for him in the meat department. And so gender was really never a big issue in my family. We were taught the value of hard work and discipline, and that we could do anything really that we set our minds to. We were never told that we couldn't do something, and we were often pushed to do something. So to be a female entrepreneur, I guess in the beginning for me, it just wasn't a thing. I was an entrepreneur and I wasn't necessarily seeing all the challenges. When I look back now and I understand the biases that are there, I did experience them, but I guess I was naive enough to think that, I was just in the pack, being myself, giving what I had to offer and being successful for that. So I think that was great.
Great answer. And next, Sophie, would you like to take a stab at that question?
Sure. Like Rhonda, my family was very equal as far as how they respected my brother and my sister and I. We were able to do whatever we wanted and we were encouraged to. So I never saw the glass ceiling. And when I was at Bell, they made us go into leadership, creating the future. And I saw the men as well as the women having self-doubts about themselves. So for me, I needed to get that master's. So I believed in myself more than anything else. But then when I went out on my own and my own business, again, I never saw that it was an issue. Then maybe that's what it is. I've never seen being a woman in all of my career, and I've always been the only woman. Often I'd been the only woman whenever I was in an environment of just being hired as an engineer or just being hired in computers or my master's, or when I was board of directors of a public company. When I look back at that, I was the only female on that board. It was back on Bay Street when I was raising funds for the entrepreneur company that I first started with back. There was 3 of us and we grew that to 30 and we went public. Again, I was the only woman on that. I was a chief operating officer. Never even occurred to me, honestly, it never occurred to me because I work so hard. I just don't even see it. So I'm a little bit odd, I think, that way.
Great answer. And Janine?
I don't think you're odd, Sophie. I mean, I hear the same thing from a lot of female entrepreneurs, and I think that for me personally, it's a badge of honor to be a female founder and an entrepreneur. And I think we just take for granted that we're going to do what we're doing and we're going to do it and we're going to be successful, right? And that's a commonality, I think, of a lot of women in business. I personally had some challenges in the beginning because I started an internet company in 1996. So I was faced, speaking of funding, I was faced with boardrooms that were all men. And it was a factor that people didn't understand what the internet was in 1996. That was pretty early, but it was definitely a challenge. So yeah, keep smashing that glass ceiling has always been my theme. Keep cracking it. I don't think it's smashed yet, but we need to keep cracking it.
I love it. I actually have a little bit of a follow-up to that. So part of the reason why we started this program at the Innovation Cluster was because of these statistics. So I'm going to read them off to you, and then I'm curious of what your thoughts are on this. So statistics actually show that only 6% of tech companies have a female CEO. On average, only 8% of directors on boards of Canadian tech companies are all women. Do those numbers surprise you, or those statistics surprise you, or is that?
Not at all. Not at all. No, I mean, maybe slightly low because I've heard as high as 16 to 70% in tech now, but it's I'm not surprised.
It's one of the reasons Rhonda and myself and Don Hennessy started FemSteam PTBO, was because it's check it out, femsteamptbo.com. We saw Rhonda speaking at a federal conference 2 years ago, and she was talking about the impact it has on the economy when a woman enters into a STEM job. The pays are higher, the economy then is higher. She's able to bring more money into her local city. She's able to be more independent. And we realized, well, why aren't we helping young women? If you can see me, you can be me, which is Rhonda's quote, become those people, whether it's on the boards or whether it's in these positions that set the path. So we're not surprised. It's why it's one of the volunteer hats we have on. It's why we work so hard at that. And I know Rhonda's just grinning there because I oversimplify the impact that women would have if they were in those positions.
Rhonda, what do you think? Is that surprising to you, those statistics, or?
No, it's not surprising, but it is changing, you know, and I think there's a lot of good programming going on. There's a lot of people staying connected. There's a lot of people that have a much broader understanding of technology now. It's infiltrated into every sector. So if you're a retail owner or you're an engineering company, we're all using technology to do our jobs. So I think we have to kind of redefine the equation because, you know, we're all in the tech sector now. And I think digital literacy is a big thing for women. I know nationally that we have to focus on, and we have to make sure that women have the skills. But you know, the new economy, the future economy, we're here now, and it's digital, and we're all in it. So guess what? Women, you're in the technology sector.
Love it. And I totally agree. We're definitely seeing a huge change. Thank you so much for all of your answers. My next question is, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome it? I'm sure we have a lot of women on this call that, or any gender really, that are on this call that have experienced that. And so I'm sure that they would be interested in how you were able to overcome that if you have yourself.
Who are we
Let's start
starting?
with Janine. Why don't you go?
Okay. So I have a friend who actually works in this sector in terms of assisting people with imposter syndrome. So I've done the quizzes and I test her online quizzes for her. But so I know I don't technically fit into imposter syndrome, which is kind of like, okay, that fits. I don't feel that I had it, but I think I have experienced it in small ways. When I move into new roles in the company, I'm CEO, but I wear a lot of hats. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I moved into doing more sales and more revenue generation development in the company. And I felt like I am not a salesperson. How do I do this? Because salespeople seem to fit into a specific role and be a certain type of person. And I felt like an imposter in that role. And I think it probably took me I think I just broke out of it this year in terms of feeling like an imposter. I'm no longer an imposter in that. I am successful in that.
Well, congratulations, Janine.
Thank you.
Sophie, do you want to answer the question about imposter
Sure.
syndrome next?
I touched on it earlier. When I was thinking about that, the imposter syndrome, I remember back in my 20s, just not having the confidence because IBM ended up being one of my clients, and we did the largest outsourcing deal of Canada's history. We outsourced not only the services, but the humans as well. We were in hotel rooms negotiating, and we'd have a signal between myself and the team, and we were all in our by the time this thing finished, we were all in our early 30s, and I was the lead of that team. We'd like do this signal to get up and just leave, just to scare them in negotiating. It was interesting, but sometimes we actually needed to talk. Other times we just wanted to just leave the room. But I mean, I definitely felt like an imposter then, but then I realized so is everybody else. No one freaking knows what they're doing because we're always on the front of technology. So it's a matter of, when I went back for my master's of engineering, everyone else was going back for their MBA. And I thought, I don't want an MBA. I feel that's soft and fuzzy. I need something that I can really look at. I don't know why, but I needed math and engineering, and I found that easier anyways. So that helped me feel like I had the confidence to sit at the table. And so that kind of helped me, and I don't even know why. But also, when you just take a step back, and if you're not sure of what's going on and you feel like that imposter syndrome, don't say anything and just listen, find mentors, and then be logical, because often you do know so much more than you realize, you know, and you can only do as well as you can do, as well as you can do. And if you put your mind to it, I find it's extraordinary things happen, especially when you pair up with people who fill gaps, you know, in whatever you're trying to accomplish. And the, you know, the number of you are greater. I feel like I'm going to be Spock here or something. I don't remember the saying. What is the saying now? Because I should know that. One of you guys must know this. You know, the sum is great and whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. I'll stop now.
Thanks, Sophie. Are you asking for Trekkies?
Yes.
I'm sure we have someone on the call today. Rhonda, would you like to tackle that question for us?
Well, I think I have a lot to offer on this question, and it's a big one. So first of all, I'm a math nerd, and I didn't even know what imposter syndrome was, truthfully, until a couple of years ago. I experienced it many times, but I didn't know it had a name. It wasn't until my own daughter, my oldest daughter, was taking her master's degree, and she was full of confidence, and she went off to do her master's program and was immediately deflated, feeling like she didn't belong. And then she has her master's of social work now. She tells me about this imposter syndrome, and I research it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a thing. You know, it's a clinical thing. And so then I evaluated my own life and realized how many times I had faced that. And, you know, I think I've heard the word confidence said a few times here, and it's really about confidence and it's about growth. So if you're going to grow and you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you don't belong. You're going to feel like you haven't quite earned the street cred to be there. And I tell you, breaking the glass ceiling, you're going to feel a lot of that, a lot of discomfort. And one of my mentors explained to me that growth happens when you take yourself out of the comfort zone. And he explained it was like a sphere, and that we should never take ourselves out here. We should be doing this all the time. And we're going to become big. Our world is bigger and bigger, but we take it a step at a time. And so each time you take that step, you're going to feel like an imposter again in a different way. And so I've certainly had that experience, not so much this year, although actually with the work I'm doing with the federal government on the Economic Strategy Council, I was one of 9 members appointed, big CEOs across the country. You know, one of them is the CEO of Suncor. I felt like an imposter next to him for the first couple of meetings. And as we got acquainted and got comfortable, and I could see him as a person and not as the CEO of Suncor, and that we were equals, then I felt better. Yeah, I think I'll keep facing it because I haven't stopped growing, and, you know, I want to achieve great heights. And so I'm going to keep experiencing it. But now I know what it is, and I can go into a situation thinking this is going to feel a little uncomfortable. But when when I'm finished, I'm going to go, wow, wasn't that great? Like, I did it. So I think it's a really great thing to analyze and to put yourself out there and put yourself into situations that make you uncomfortable, because that's how you're going to grow. And that's really how you'll achieve success, and you'll be embraced for the change that you're making. If you just stay in the same block and don't feel uncomfortable, people aren't going to notice you, frankly. So be noticed, stretch yourself, grow, feel that imposter syndrome. It's good for you.
I love that. That was a great answer. Feel the imposter syndrome. I think that's fantastic. And I think that it leads really, really well into our next question, which is, did you have to reinvent yourself throughout your career? Because I know that a lot of you have had ebbs and flows throughout your careers. So would love to hear about that. And then if you have, how have you reinvented yourself, and how did you go through that? Why don't we start with Sophie this time to switch
Okay. Well, after we did I went broke, completely broke, lost all my money. So here I was at Bell making 150, 170 grand a year way back in the 80s and the 90s. Yes, I'm old. And it was you know, driving a Jag, box seats everywhere. Every restaurant in the area knew me. And then you're doing the .com and you're raising money up and down Bay Street, and then it goes bust, the .com bust. Everything blew up. I lost all my money because I put all my money into it. And I had nothing, absolutely nothing. Couldn't even buy bread. I remember thinking, damn, this is weird. So I actually moved to Peterborough because of that reason, or the area. And I didn't know who the heck I was. I really did not know what I was going to do. And you start really doubting yourself, but then you take a step back. And so what I did was I said, okay, what do I want to do? So I called Trent University and I told them I'm moving to the area. I want to help them build bridges from Trent to the business community, because I was doing that at University of Toronto as one of my volunteer hats. And then I called whoever was the chair of the Chamber of Commerce at the time, Kevin Breeze, and called him, and his company happened to be a high-tech company. They were introducing directories. They just created one, an online directory. I told him I wanted to get to know him because I was jumping in feet first. So they both hired me when I went up to speak to them on one day. They both wanted me to do certain things for them. And that's where I really started understanding my strength. I started teaching at Trent online business principles. I realized I really like this. I like putting everything I know into, a book or into checklists or into, this is how you do this stuff that I've learned all of my life. And then from Bell. And then I realized going across the country, helping municipalities and economic developers and chambers of commerce understand how to use digital networks, how to use online business directories. This shit feels good. I'm good at this. I like this. I really get it. And then the internet started getting something that everyone could create their own websites, but they weren't sure how to, or everyone could use, and then social media happened. I realized, okay, I wrote books about the topic. I wrote how to. So my current world now has been so reinvented that half of my time I teach businesses how to leverage the power of social media. The other half of the time, I'm hands-on doing social media for Kawartha TV and Stereo, Chesler Shoes, Knock on Wood, and other businesses, all family-run businesses. So I had to reinvent myself. I mean, no one would have thought, coming from an undergrad in computers and a master's of engineering, that I would be doing social media training and a social media agency for a living. So quite the reinventing. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love the fact that my foundation allowed me to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. What a story. I love it. Rhonda, have you had to reinvent yourself?
Sure. I'll try to keep my comments brief. It's just really elaborating on the last question and the imposter syndrome. So life's not static. It's changing every day. You need to change with it. And, I'm now 30 years in my career and I'm not at all where I thought I'd be. I've gone, in a completely different direction, and I've gone to heights I never imagined. And you only do that by changing and exploring and learning new things and taking a step forward in that continuum every day. I believe in lifelong learning, and it's especially important as an entrepreneur because you start a business usually because you're really good at one thing and it's usually your product, but you have to learn so much else to be successful in running a business. So it's just absolutely critical.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Janine?
I have a couple of quick points that are going to seem disjointed. First of all, Arlene Dickinson has written a great book on this called Reinvention. And she has a great podcast called Reinvention. So if people need to be inspired on that, then that's a good place to go. I think her book's about a year old, so it's fairly current. I feel, this year has been challenging for reinvention for a lot of people. We don't want to hear the word pivot one more time, but a lot of businesses have had to do that. I started reinventing myself when I first landed on the internet. And so that's way back. There's probably people on this call who weren't even born then, and that's fine. But so I think Rhonda had a really great point about lifelong learning. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to do that. We constantly have to look at our lane because we compete against corporate media, and we have to be evaluating all the time where we're at. So for me, it feels like a constant process of reinvention on a regular basis. And this year was just, March 14th, we literally sat down at our boardroom table, which is also our kitchen. Luckily, it's a large table, and cleared it off and said, what are we going to do? So I feel that a new level of reinvention started in mid-March for us. We lost 75% of our revenue in 2 weeks and most of our content. So we had to pretty quickly reinvent what was going on in our world. And luckily we did. And yeah, that's another story. I'll stop.
No, I love that. Thank you for, I think that it's important for the people that are watching this panel to know that even successful founders like yourselves face challenges, right? And especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, people were hit especially hard. I mean, they are calling it the she session. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to address those challenges that have been faced as well. So we're going to go into the next question that I have on my list, which is in relation to work-life balance. And I know for founders, this is a tricky one. So does it exist? Do you make an effort to have it? Is work-life balance even a thing? Maybe we'll start with Rhonda.
Sure. I guess it's how you define it. For me, it's my life is full and it's full of things that I love. You know, people may objectively look at that as, and some people do, of it not being balanced, but, you know, every day of my life is rich and full, and I have time for family. I have time for myself, my dogs. I have time for my company, my employees, my friends, my family. I have time to spend with national and international colleagues and to make a difference in the world. So, you know, I'm a pretty discipline driven person, and I'm not the kind of person that's looking to check out and, you know, sit in a chair for 20 hours a week or something. So if that's in your DNA, your, you know, work-life balance is going to look different. And, you know, I love what I do. I love the balance that I find within it. It's push and pull, it's give and take, and it's not a 9-to-5 job, but I love it. I was made for it. It's in my DNA.
Great. Sophie?
Well, when I was a younger human, I thought that we should all work and live in the same building so we never had to stop working. I remember suggesting that at Bell, that why don't we all just get I mean, because I'm kind of ADD, I am ADD, and I need to always be busy. And so my husband gave me this fidget ring because I fidget. But I have to say that there are a few things that I do that enable me to balance. Number one, every year I do a list. Every New Year's, I do a list with 5 things of goals that I'm going to set that year. And they happen to be for your brain, continuing education for yourself, for your body, always freaking losing weight, or challenging myself to do another long walk, whether it's the Camino or Peru, or challenging myself somehow, career-wise, networking-wise, heart-wise, family-wise, friend-wise. So I do goals. Like maybe I look at it and I know, because I'm an engineer, I measure it and I go, shit, I don't see my girlfriends enough. I have Fab 5 and I need to see them more often. So I put on there, how often should I see my friends? So if it's not on the matrix, it doesn't get done for me. So I have to schedule it. When I used to, these are all my, I found these for you guys, my half marathons. I've done quite a few half marathons, and the reason I do them is because I schedule the half marathon, then I have to schedule the workout that goes along with it to get ready, or I'm not going to get out the door because I just will work instead. And then I ended up marrying. So I've been engaged 5 times, married a few, and the man I'm with now, he is a balanced man, and he introduced me to something called a VW bus. You can't go any slower in life than traveling in a VW bus. Oh my God. At first I thought my head was going to explode. But every time we've gone out, and now he and I are business partners, we re-engage with each other. We reinvent who we are in a way. And our company does so much better when we get back from our trips. We've been coast to coast in Mexico, coast to coast in the States, and coast to coast in Canada many times. So if you are like me, where you need your list, then put it on a list so it happens. Or if you need to schedule, you know, I used to do kayaking trips. I used to do all these different trips so that I would get away. then schedule them. But if you don't do it, you're not going to be doing things better. You're not going to increase your quality of life. Oh my gosh, it's so refreshing when you're able to balance. There is nothing more refreshing than when you come back from one of those balance things. I hope that helps.
Fantastic answer. And I'm very jealous of you with your traveling. Janine, do you have work-life balance?
Well, I think the reason this question exists, particularly for women, is because we're having to do it all. And this year has been really problematic for a lot of women in this area. I don't want to take a lot of time on it, but it's one of those things that it fits in with the entrepreneurial mold. If it needs to happen and you need to make it happen. So you need to have control of your schedule and carving out time. And it's been a tough year. I haven't had any vacation this year, but I have a scheduled time. I used to do it where I schedule my time for breaks and to stop at 4 o'clock and knit and listen to CBC for an hour, but it wasn't happening. Like the work just took over. And I think that that's the real issue here, is that if you're running a business, that in some cases, depending on where your business is at, that the work is going to take over. But we really need to stay in touch with how we're feeling on things. And I see a lot of women out of control this year with what they're balancing. And it's a real concern. So I think that we need to stay in touch with our own feelings and needs on that. And don't feel guilty about carving that time, because you need it. It's really important.
You're no good to anybody else if
Yeah.
you're not healthy yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and those were all fantastic perspectives on that question. So I really appreciate all of your input, because everyone is going to approach the work-life balance challenge differently. So it's nice to have very different perspectives on that, whether you're knitting or spending time with family or traveling in a VW bus, right?
I think we all have, interesting to note that we all have dogs too. We all have dogs, right?
I don't trust people without dogs. So
exactly. Yeah.
Next question that we have is, the government has recently announced many measures for women in business. So do you see any room for improvement, or do you think that what they're doing is awesome and is addressing those challenges? And I'm actually very curious, because I know Rhonda's working closely on some of these efforts. So why don't we start with Rhonda?
Sure. I can tell you generally and maybe some specifics. I actually was just on the phone yesterday with Minister Freeland's appointed staff member on the strategy for women in the economy. I'm quite interested in participating in that, because I think there is still so much work to be done. We're really having the conversation now because of the She session, frankly. And we've been disproportionately impacted in the jobs that we held in the economy. And so proportionally, we have to focus more on getting women back to work. And, entrepreneurship's a great place for women to consider work. So I think, historically, though, women borrow less, they push boundaries less. I mean, maybe not specifically the women that are on the panel here, but, women are less they're more risk adverse. They take less financial risks, less transactional risks, less technological risks. They really think things through. So that can create some challenges with our male counterparts. So I think the patriarchy still exists, and systems are set up for the way men think, the way men engage in business. And so we really have to have a different focus and a new approach of, how women look at risk and how women look at growing their business. So I think there's a really important role for government to play to apply that gender lens more acutely to have more success. We make up 52% of the population, I think, and almost that much of the workforce as well. So we're really important. We're untapped potential in the economy. So I think it's prudent for the government to put some more focus there and elevate women in the economy. It's going to make the entire economy more prosperous. It's going to make families more prosperous, our communities more prosperous. So it's good for everyone.
Thanks, Rhonda. Totally agree. Janine, I know you're getting a lot of the press briefings and media releases. Do you have any input on this question or this topic?
Well, we've made in the span of my career, we've made huge improvements and all of that. And I don't want to take away from what Rhonda's saying, but I honestly, I have been alarmed this year in what women have been dealing with, and why did we fall back into women being the caretakers at home when they were having to do Skype meetings and run their businesses. I mean, it's alarm. And I realize that government has to move at that pace. I am a huge fan of Minister Freeland as well, and very grateful for her role this year. But and not to hang it on any particular party, but we're not doing enough. I mean, I think that we really need to be raising those alarm bells of what has happened this year, and why has that happened, and why did we fall back into those traditional roles. So, and it's not even anywhere near March 8th yet, and I'm all fired up. So I tend to get more militant as we get closer to International Women's Day. But I mean, I just wanted to flag that I'm alarmed at what has happened. And Rose, you're a good example of that. You've been working at home, you have a toddler. I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenge, but I think things are hopefully getting better. So, Sophie, do you have any thoughts on this topic?
Not as many as Janine, and definitely not as much knowledge as Rhonda has on this topic. But I do know when at the beginning of this year there was a fund that came out, and a number of us were really excited about this entrepreneurship fund for women. And we spent days and nights. We even went to workshops on how to fill out the all of the information on it and all the applications. And we had people helping on it, hiring consultants to help us make sure none of us in the area, not one businesswoman received one of those funds from what I understood. And there was no feedback either. When we all tried to understand why we did not get the funds, we didn't get any feedback. The feedback was the same. It said that there was a piece of information missing, and all of us got the exact same form letter. And so that was a huge disappointment. And I'm kind of a rose glass person, where I'm thinking through the rose, and where I always thought, well, of course, they're going to just pick the best. I don't think they even looked, and so that really deflated me when it comes to the trust in. So, and I even hate saying that because I'm such a positive person. If you guys know me, you know that I think that anything you can achieve anything. So that was disappointing. I can't remember even what it was. Community Futures was really trying to help us all. I don't know if you guys all remember that one, but
I do, because we were actually watching for the results, the media results in that. And I think that was unfortunately an underfunded program that maybe didn't have as much success. There are a lot of great new programs for women. I mean, I remember the time when they didn't exist. Yeah. So I think that we've made a fair amount of progress on that.
I know I'm being hired to train a lot of women entrepreneurs across Ontario right now. So I know there are funds out there, and they're all for entrepreneurs through Northumberland, through some Indigenous groups out in the Sarnia area. So I'm constantly on training on how they can, help digitize their business. And so I know the funds are there, but that one just like, oh my gosh, you kidding me? Anyways.
We should acknowledge that in terms of the federal government right now, that one of the pillars that they do support, and I think that Rhonda can confirm this, is female entrepreneurship. It's one of 4 pillars of federal development, correct, Rhonda? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's one thing I'd like to build on what Janine said, about falling back 30 years, which we have. And the government has some good programs out there that, quite frankly, aren't properly leveraged in industry, and in particular in male-dominated industries like mine. So we have things like parental leave in Canada that I don't think we leverage the way we should. And so in my own company, I make sure, I'm still only about 35% women in my own facility, and working to improve that. But the only way for women to be elevated in the economy is to make sure that men have, the same flexibility for child care and child rearing that you would give a woman. So I make sure of that in my own facility. I make sure that when babies are being born in my male employees, that they understand about parental leaves and all of that, that they want to engage in that, want to engage in the caring aspects, and that, when they have after school activities, et cetera, that they have the flexibility to do that. And certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, I had several of my male employees with young kids, and anyone that I could, I gave them the work from home option so that they could juggle with the family, because it needs to be seen as a family obligation and not a female obligation. And so, when you're a woman in power and you understand these things, you have to do enough to get both genders thinking about this equally.
And we all need to be vocal about it, is my feeling as well. People seem to be aware of what's going on with the she session, but I think we all need to, I think we have a responsibility to be more vocal about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all great thoughts and input on that one. I know that's a huge, could probably have a panel on that subject alone. So I really appreciate all of your input. And I totally agree, Rhonda. I think that sometimes these things have to come from the top as well, right? To encourage the counterparts as well to be involved. I think that
Absolutely.
makes a huge difference. So I appreciate that you're doing that within your company. The next question that I have is also kind of a large question. So, and I'm seeing we're having lots of active question and answer from the audience as well. So I would love to get to some of those questions if we can, once we get through some of our questions here. So did you find you had to step out of the traditional female role, what some might consider female role, in order to be successful? How did you navigate that when you were trying to become a respected leader in your industry? And did you have to ruffle a lot of feathers? Or do you think it's impossible to be a woman and still be admired the way that powerful men are? And this is a big one. So let's start with Janine.
So when I looked at this question, I'm thinking, okay, so what is the traditional female role? I'm not even sure that I can wrap my head around that, because I see it differently than as a female entrepreneur. So I just want to throw that part out. Like, what is the traditional female role? I'm a little bit biased. I'm a lot biased in this. Sorry, I'm never a little bit biased about anything. I'm a lot biased in this because in my sector, female publishers are really limited. There are very few role models. It's a male-dominated industry. Corporately, it's male-dominated, so it's difficult. I'm way past the point of ruffling feathers. It's just, yeah, I'm going to be the first one to talk about the patriarchy, because it's in my face every day. I think it still exists. I think it's pretty strong in our city. I'm going to say that. I think it's still pretty strong, but we're making progress, and I'm optimistic. But it's just in my personality and DNA to be ruffling feathers. So it's the way that I take that on. It may not be the way for everybody, but yes, I have.
Thanks, Janine. Never change. Sophie.
Well, I don't suffer fools at all. So I'm not sure if that's ruffling feathers, because I have to say I don't really care. I'm fine, so I prefer to stick to the facts and try and share a large picture with people, males or females, and how their role could really help the large picture. And if they don't seem to understand that, again, I don't suffer fools, men or women. But all that said, remember I mentioned I was kind of engaged 5 times, married 3. Well, a number of those didn't work out because, as I said, I don't suffer fools, but it's not that they were foolish, but they were looking for the traditional female role. And that never occurred to me that I could cook and clean and be their caregiver like heaven, that just wasn't happening. So I needed, if you are a female entrepreneur and you love what you do and you do it because it comes to you, you have a brain, you need to understand that you need to believe in yourself. So you're not compromising yourself and leaving yourself aside for someone else to step on you. So this is why I remember my very first, the person I was engaged to said that he really needed me to be under his wing more, versus, which as soon as he said the word under his wing, all sexual desire for that guy went down the tubes. I mean, there was just nothing happening. I mean, anyways. So yeah, so I don't suffer fools. You need to really believe in yourself. And right now I am married to the most amazing man that we both have strengths and weaknesses. He cooks better than I do. I clean better than he does. So we stick to what we do better. And it's not a traditional role, so it's you do what we do better and what we love. So again, to what Janine's saying, what is traditional? So I'm not your caregiver, but yeah. That's
Thanks,
all I'll
Sophie.
say. You're welcome.
Rhonda?
Yeah, so I guess for me, I fell in the trap. I wanted it all. I was raised in a working class family, so my mother worked. I had a lot of friends that their mother didn't work. It was more that traditional role. And when I had the opportunity to have children, I wanted that, and I really enjoyed that. But I also, as that time went on, I wanted my job back, and so, I had the career, I had kids, I did both of those things. I wanted to cook, I wanted to have a beautiful house, I wanted to have it all. And then you start to realize that things do have to give for you to have it all. And so you have to start to pick and choose. And my kids, at first they felt uncomfortable as I started to work more and be with them less. And, now they actually comment all the time of what a good role model I've been for them on, how to balance those things out, because they have great careers now. They don't have kids yet, but they think that, there's another way. It's not all June Cleaver or all Miss Corporate. And it is give and take. So, I fell into the trap. I was naive, and, and then I learned things, and I started to make decisions on what was important and what wasn't, frankly, and that I didn't need, I could hire a cleaning lady and that wasn't the end of the world. And, I could even order in takeout or order cooked food from my freezer, and that was okay as well. So, I've been through that kind of whole gamut. But I think the one thing through this is I was also naive about the perception of a woman in business and a woman doing it all, that it was great. And, I wasn't discriminated. And then in the last couple of years, I realized I did face discrimination and I just didn't understand it. And, women, you roll your eyes a lot when things are said about you. And you know what? I'm 52 now. I've been through cancer. I just don't put up with it anymore. I'm at a point in my life where I just call it out. And so I'm a little bit bold, and sometimes that gets me into trouble. But at some point you reach that point and it's just like, just call it out. Because if women are really going to be successful, you have to call out the biases, the discriminations that are there. And they're usually unconscious bias in language. In my company, everybody says, I need to go talk to the guys. Well, to me, guys are men, and this company is more than men. So there's all kinds of things like that we need to shake up and be bold and call out.
And support each other.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Very important to support one another. Thank you for all of your answers. Those were all excellent. So the last question that we actually have today from myself, and then we're going to move into some audience questions, is from each of you, what advice do you have for female entrepreneurs who are breaking barriers and who are pioneers in their field? Let's start with Sophie.
Well, I'd like to say to always be in the now. It is so important to be in the now. So if you are right now doing something for yourself, walking through the woods, hiking, walk through those woods, put your frickin' phone away, be in the now. If you are in a meeting and there is something really horrible going on at home, be in the meeting. I'm sorry, but you got to departmentalize. I have found that balancing, having those 3 or 4 or 5 things that I want to do through the day, which is, for myself, for my family, for my, company, for the community, I will be in the now when I am doing those things. That's the biggest thing. I remember when I was going back for my master's, I looked at my notes for the first year, and it was all the agenda of whatever I was doing the next day at work. And I didn't do well the first year of my master's part-time because I wasn't in the now. Then I learned to departmentalize, and I'm in the now. As many of you know, I've got something very sad going on at home, which I'm not going to go to because then I won't be in the now. So I got to stay in the now, and it helps you stay sane. So my work helps me stay sane because I love it. And I think that's the biggest thing I could say. And never burn bridges. Network with quality people. Have quality people you trust, ethical people that you trust, that you can talk to about anything, no matter what stage you're at in a thought process. Because as we all said, we're always reinventing ourselves, because especially if you're in technology, it's changing so often. You need to have people that you're going to be able to trust and speak to.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That's great advice. Janine?
I think my top advice for female entrepreneurs is to listen to their gut. And I know that that's tough for some people, but you have the vision for your business. So trust yourself and your inner voice in what you feel your direction should be. And that's really easy to say. It's tough to do. Find the advice that you need, but really separate out from what the influences are that are taking you off your path. Listen to your gut. I can trust mine easily. So that's sometimes it comes naturally for some people, but if you don't have the answers, then find them. There's so many ways to get resources and mentorship advice, and just reach out and know that there's a whole community waiting to help you.
Great. Thanks, Janine. Rhonda?
Yeah, I'll just echo a word that Janine just said, and that's mentorship. So I think the key ingredient that has been my success has been mentorship. And so that can be a personal mentor for you as an individual, or it can be an advisory board for your small company. And I've had both, and it's been pivotal. It doesn't have to be women. And in my career, it's mostly been men. Right now, I have a very senior female and a very senior male in business, international business, currently as my mentors. So you never stop growing. You never stop needing that advice, that objectivity, that affirmation, that push, whatever it is. So surround yourself with people, that are a step or two ahead of you, and have some outside advice to bring to you or your business. And advisory boards, you can check out on the BDC website. I did a video many years ago on the importance of advisory boards. And a lot of times you can put 2 or 3 smart people together and just give them lunch, and they'll help you with your business. So consider that.
That's excellent advice, Rhonda. And as a matter of fact, in our accelerator program, we're actually focusing on creating advisory board right now. So I really appreciate you talking about that, because I think that that's something that a lot of new businesses don't even necessarily consider in their early days, and how much it can really help and impact them. So appreciate that you all indicated mentors. I think that's a great, important piece as a founder. So I appreciate you taking the time to answer all of my questions. If everyone has a moment, we do, I think, have one question that we can answer from the audience before we sign off today. So it's a big question though. So this question came in from Sheila Crook, Peterborough. One of the biggest challenges in achieving gender equality and full engagement of women in the economy is recognizing the very different experiences of women. Our unique individual experience is not the same experience for all women. COVID-19 has shed light on the inequities and systemic discriminatory barriers that are embedded into many aspects of daily living, education, health, justice, work, etc. Can the panelists speak to what insights COVID may have provided them into what the workplace and what an entrepreneur needs to consider when running a business to ensure we are considering the intersectional nature of inclusive diversity as a core business factor? Who wants to tackle that one first?
Well, I can offer some insights, and Similar to a question that you had given me as I'm chair of EDI for a new federally funded board, Palette, on reskilling and the importance of reskilling disrupted workers is to make in a new entity is to make sure that we get this right at the beginning and we don't put inherent education and hiring biases into the system. So if you have new businesses, it's the same. And I just had a meeting on Friday with Minister Chagger, who's the minister for EDI essentially in Canada. And it was a dynamic interchange. And she really gave it to me and made me think all weekend about this file and about this problem. And she's talking about pushing beyond white feminist policy into looking at intersectionality. And she's so right. And we all have to think about it. And if we're going to get this right, and if it's important to your business, and I hope that it is, you need to really educate yourself on what EDI is and how you can set really good policies in your organization up front, the governance of how you run your business, how you hire, how you advertise hiring, how you evaluate your staff, how you evaluate your customers. It's all so sensitive and important. And I think we all have a lot to learn. And the federal government just announced a challenge 50-30, I think last week more formally, but it's going to become incentivized in business that you get this right, because the government's going to hold our feet to the fire. And so if you're starting a new business, you're at an advantage to get this right. Educate yourself. What does EDI mean for you and for your business, and how can you get that right? And I'm still learning every day because full-heartedly, I'm still stuck a little bit on that white feminist policy, and Mr. Chagger called me out on it, and I have stuff to learn.
Can you speak about that a little bit more? What do you feel you need to do there, Rhonda?
Well, I've been so focused in my industry that women are so grossly underrepresented that, I need to just focus on women. But if I'm not focusing more broadly on what diversity is, I'm going to still be leaving a whole bunch of people behind. So I have to look at that intersectionality. Even if my focus is on women, it can't be just broadly women. I have to think about, other ways, other aspects of someone that applies the gender lens of women to themselves. What are the other things around them that would discriminate them, that would, prevent them from coming to my sector? What are, what things do I need to think about to be, open and sensitive to all of those aspects which are discriminating a huge part of the population from engaging in my sector? So I take that as something I need to learn more.
That's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rhonda. Great answer. Would anyone else like to contribute anything to that question that we had from the audience?
I can't add to that.
I know Rhonda did such a great job.
Rhonda saw that show.
Sophie?
No, I take my hat off to Rhonda and her knowledge. And if she still has to learn on this, which we all do, yeah, we're all novices on how to what to do next. But I think it comes from leadership. All leadership needs to be clear on how to be open, how to be fair, how not to be discriminative. But it's a large topic. It's not one, I mean, we're already 3 minutes over. And so it's not one that I think Rhonda did a great job.
Yes, I totally agree. And for anyone that doesn't know, I just wanted to point out when Rhonda says that she's the chair of EDI, it's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So it's awesome to hear that from her perspective. So as Sophie pointed out, we are a few minutes over, which I think we needed to be, so I'm not upset about it. For anyone that needed to leave, we did record this, so it will be posted later on. I'd like to take the time right now to sincerely thank all three of you for, I know that you are so busy right now, and for taking the time to participate in this panel. I think that the attendees really did learn a lot today. And it's really amazing to see all three of you doing such incredible things, not necessarily just in your work, but also in the work that you do to support women across the board and carve those paths for the future entrepreneurs that are, up and comers. I'm really excited for you to, see what our cohort does in the Women Breaking Barriers program. They're amazing. They're an amazing group. So with that being said, is there any final words before we sign off today from anyone?
Keep going.
Yeah. Keep stepping forward.
Great final words. I love it. Thank you so much for tuning in. For anyone interested, you're more than welcome to follow any and all of these lovely, wonderful women on social media. They all are very active. And you can also follow the Innovation Cluster. Currently, we're running a 25 Days of Startups campaign. So it's like a virtual advent calendar. You can learn about some of the startups that are in our region. And if you're interested in the Women Breaking Barriers Accelerator program, we are opening applications for the next cohort in January. So keep your eyes open for that. Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you,
Bye,
Rose.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.